Siamecat, introducing the Rebootron, a machine that can reboot any long-forgotten series. Now the results aren't always quality, but we'll see what happens. Laugh at Siamecat's opinions day. No one needs to see that. Now this is a good one. I remember when it released in 2010 for the Wii, and things that released in 2010 for the Wii are my specialty.
Despite being a shameless 2000s era propagandist when it comes to Nintendo, I'll admit it probably wasn't the best time to be a Donkey Kong fan. Rare was bought by Microsoft in 2002, but was still allowed to make handheld games for Nintendo. So there were remakes of classic Donkey Kong countries on the Game Boy Advance, which was just as well because remakes were already 80% of its library. But you also had GameCube and Wii games by Nintendo themselves that were...
Somebody once told me the...
probably in poor taste. They used a peripheral called the DK Bongos, but not all of them were rhythm games. There was also a 2D platformer called Donkey Kong Jungle Beat controlled with the bongos that just so happened to remove any and all influence Rare had on the series. Donkey Kong appeared in basically every multiplayer Mario spin-off, and at least those games did a slightly better job representing the Donkey Kong series. DK Mountain from Mario Kart Double Dash and Wii was probably the best new thing to come out of Donkey Kong this decade. Why do you guys still care about my opinions? However, the team that made Jungle Beat would go on to make this and this, so it all paid off in the end.
Right, Donkey Kong fans?
You still there? From the similar music to this swingable dandelion, it all starts to make sense. And thus, Donkey Kong Country returneth. Retro Studios would be the ones to develop this game. I would comment on what the announcement was like at the time, but I was probably busy playing DK Mountain, so on to the story. Donkey Kong Country Returns opens with the volcano on DK Island erupting, causing a new group of villains called the Tiki Tak tribe to suddenly appear. They then go around hypnotizing the animals to steal DK's banana hoard. One of the Tikis tries to hypnotize DK, but it has no effect. This is never explained. And just like that, you're thrown right into the first level without even seeing the world map. And right away, this game looks incredible. I don't know what else you want from me. The most fascinating thing about this game's art style is how believable it is. Besides collectibles, nothing just floats in midair. No matter how subtle it is, every platform makes sense as part of the environment, with one level as an exception that we'll get to later. I like the Mario way of handling this too, where some things float and some things don't, but Donkey Kong Country Returns is a refreshing change of pace compared to the rest of the entire genre. The first level of each world even transitions from the last world into the next. Cohesive theming and platformers is really fascinating to me. This isn't just any other reboot that rehashes everything. There's actually quite a lot of originality here. You have all the same moves as before, but DK feels much heavier to control. I mean, I guess that's the best way to describe it, but the movement is never unresponsive, it's just different from the older games. The ground pounder, whatever you want to call it, is a new move that just makes sense for the character. It's mainly used to break things and activate set pieces.
Wait! That's wrong!
So evidently the ground pound isn't actually new to Returns. I've played through this game how many times and haven't seen this? Then there's blowing. This move was suggested to Retro Studios by Miyamoto and everyone hated it. His intent was to add some comic relief to DK's moveset, but in practice it's just clunky, since you have to stand in front of something, duck, and then shake the Wiimote. Yeah, that's another thing about this game. Motion controls. In order to ground pound and roll as well, you have to shake the controller. And I honestly, genuinely believe this doesn't detract from the game whatsoever. There are so many examples of motion controls done right that too many people dismiss as bad because motion controls. Diddy is once again DK's sidekick on the adventure, but he works a little differently this time. You can still find him in DK barrels scattered across the levels, but instead of swapping to playing as him when you get hit, he rides on DK's back and leaves after 2 hits. When you have Diddy, you can roll infinitely and hover in the air for a second with his jetpack. Of course, in multiplayer, the second player is Diddy. Banana coins return, and this time they're used to buy items at Cranky's shop. You can buy lives, a key that unlocks more levels, and even various cheating devices. Yeah, it's nice to have easy mode options to make the game more accessible to all its skill levels. It's just very ironic that Cranky of all characters is the one selling them. The Kong Ladders are back, and this time they're the collectibles that are in plain sight, but usually require a risky move to get. Getting all of them in a world unlocks a temple level, and completing these unlocks something we'll talk about later. These temple levels, though, despite being the hardest in the game, are still mostly fairly designed. Mostly. Puzzle pieces are the hidden collectible, and since there can be up to 9 in a level, you might have to become a recreational detective to find them all. Bonus rooms from the original trilogy are back. This is kinda lame. Yeah, DKC 1's bonus rooms were repetitive, but in Returns it's just 10 or so different variants of Acquire the Shinies. In DKC 2 and 3, every bonus room was a unique challenge based off the level's gimmick, which was really cool. Back to Returns, here's a bonus room from World 1, and here's one from World 8. Spot the difference.
Spaghetti!
All you get for completing them are puzzle pieces too, which is fine, I guess. Puzzle pieces unlock concept art and dioramas, so not something you have to find. But as a fan, you can imagine I really enjoy this kind of stuff. Rambi's here and he's in 4 whole levels. He's a thrill to use in those 4 levels, but he's also the only animal buddy. I honestly don't even mind the lack of animal buddies, because Returns is already so overflowing with creativity that they weren't really needed. Most reboots of 2D platformers take the easy way out and don't take advantage of being on a more powerful console. Now I'm no expert, but I think much of the new Super Mario Bros. Series probably could have functioned on the SNES. Maybe. Donkey Kong Country Returns set the bar for 2D platformers higher than anything else had in decades. Every level is a recognizable environment, physics are used for platforms, obstacles come in from the background, and it all benefits the level design. This tends to be a spectacle-heavy game, but there are of course some slower and more atmospheric levels throughout as well. To highlight some great levels, there's one where an octopus chases you, traveling from the ruins into a cluster of pirate ships, outrunning a horde of spiders, a World 2 themed level in World 6, the typical vertical rising lava level, a really clever on and off switch level, and one where everything is in sync with the music. And of course the minecart levels are perfect for this game. You're not stuck in one area the whole time, and as I said before, the set pieces are just so memorable. Look at this! Look at how cool this is! There's a new type of level introduced as well, the rocket barrel levels.
You see all these buttons on this controller? You only need this one.
These levels are alright, but your up and down movement is a little delayed for my liking. This one with the bats is pretty much iconic for its ridiculous difficulty. Speaking of difficulty, this game is hard. There are 3 types of levels in games.
Easy, hard, and Donkey Kong Country Returns.
But despite how brutal it can be at times, it never really feels unfair. There was never a moment where I got wrecked by something I couldn't have seen coming, poison pond, animal antics, and stampede sprint. And for reasons like that, I never understood the notion that Returns is harder than the original trilogy. I mean, if I wasn't great at Returns when I was 8, I wouldn't have been able to even beat DKC2 when I was 8. If you die enough times in a level, you'll be given the option to chicken out, admit defeat, surrender, whatever you want to call it, and watch Super Kong play it for you. It feels like every Wii game had this feature for a while. I'm not going to use it, but it exists for a reason. The music is half original and half remixes of DKC1 songs. Unlike Donkey Kong 64, which just sounds like Banjo-Kazooie music, the original songs to this game emulate the original style pretty well, but sometimes they're not all that memorable. The setting is of course still DK Island, but this is a bit of an original take on DK Island. World 1 is still the jungle, and it introduces an amazing art style only seen in 3 levels, the Silhouette level. I don't think you need me to tell you why this is cool. World 2 is a beach, which is a new theme to the series. World 3 expands the ruins from just 2 levels in the original to a full world. World 4 is a few minecart and rocket barrel levels in a cave, which is automatically way less cave levels than the original. World 5 is the return of the forest, and is probably my favorite world. World 6, the cliffs, is also new to this game. Really cool. And World 7, the factory, has this neat gimmick where you have to find 3 switches in 3 separate levels to activate a vertical rocket barrel level that controls way better than the others. 7-1 is another Silhouette level, and this was actually the first level I played of this game, and what a first impression it was. World 8 is a generic volcano world, but at least it makes sense in the context of the story. The bosses are pretty creative, but a little on the long side. Sometimes the different phases are unique, but they can also be a little too similar. Here's the final boss. I guess it's time to take the pin off. Tiki Tong is the leader of the Tiki. The ones you've been fighting the whole game throw some bananas into Tiki Tong's mouth, and it all starts to make sense. In case the banana birds weren't enough confirmation, the banana horde was entrusted to be protected by the Kong family because it has world-conquering power. Using whatever this banana juice is called, the Tikis turn into a pair of hands for Tiki Tong. Ending time. DK gets blasted into space, punches the moon, it falls in the volcano shoots it back into space, Diddy saves DK, the banana horde erupts from the volcano, and that's the game! Okay, I'm not going to try to defend this ending the same way I did DKC3's, because this is a terrible way to end a game that contradicts this ending's logic 99% of the time. If the rest of the game were more in line with this ending, I wouldn't have any problem with it, though even as it is, I still respect the decision to commit to a joke ending just for the sake of it. After that, a golden temple appears as a sort of World 9. If you've completed all the other temple levels, you can enter it. So you go inside, eat a golden banana, and get transported to some kind of alternate dimension. While it is a bunch of fruit floating in the sky, which is very different from the rest of the game's consistently cohesive art style, this does make sense given the lore surrounding the banana horde. It's also the hardest level in the game, testing everything you've learned up to this point. Donkey Kong Country Returns is more than just any old retro throwback. It redefines what a Donkey Kong game could be, in the entire genre of 2D platformer. The sequel, Tropical Freeze, will naturally get all the credit because it's, well, better, but Donkey Kong Country Returns is still an important part of the series. Oh dang it! Donkey Kong Country Returns would be ported to the 3DS by Monster Games in 2013, bringing with it an easy mode and a whole extra world building up to the final level. The easy mode gives you 2 extra hearts and more items available to buy from Cranky. Now the level design is already amazing as it is, but the 8 new levels in the 3DS version need to be told to calm down. They combine new assets with ones seen throughout the rest of the game to make some of the coolest levels in a platformer. This is what makes the 3DS version the definitive one, not because they removed the motion controls or some equally as insignificant change.
Galaxy 3? But worth a shot. What's happening to the space-time continuum?